America already possesses one of the world's largest nuclear arsenals. So why does it still need three different ways to deliver nuclear weapons? The answer is not simply about having more missiles or more warheads. It is about making sure that no adversary can ever be confident that it can destroy America's ability to retaliate. Nuclear weapons are fundamentally different from conventional weapons. Their primary purpose is often not to be used, but to convince an adversary that using them would be catastrophic. This is the basic logic behind nuclear deterrence. The idea is relatively simple. If attacking the United States would guarantee devastating retaliation, then starting a nuclear war becomes an extremely dangerous decision. The challenge is making that threat credible. An adversary must believe that enough American nuclear forces would survive an initial attack to strike back. This is where the concept of a second strike becomes critical. A second strike capability means that even after suffering a massive nuclear attack, a country can still respond with enough force to impose unacceptable costs on the attacker. For nuclear deterrence, survivability can therefore be just as important as destructive power. But imagine if America's entire nuclear arsenal depended on one type of weapon. If an adversary could somehow locate and destroy that entire force, the credibility of America's deterrent could be seriously weakened. This is one of the fundamental reasons Washington developed what is known as the nuclear triad. The nuclear triad consists of three major delivery systems: land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, ballistic missile submarines, and strategic bombers. Each operates differently and faces different vulnerabilities. Together, they create multiple layers of deterrence that are much harder for an adversary to eliminate simultaneously. The first leg is based on land. America's ICBMs are designed to provide a rapid and powerful response while being dispersed across hardened facilities. Their existence also creates a difficult strategic problem for an adversary, because attacking them would require targeting a large number of protected sites. The second leg is beneath the ocean, and this may be the most survivable part of the entire system. Ballistic missile submarines can disappear into vast areas of ocean, making their exact location extremely difficult to determine. As long as some of these submarines survive, an adversary cannot assume that a first strike has eliminated America's nuclear response. The third leg comes from the air: strategic bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Bombers are more visible and potentially more vulnerable than submarines, but they offer something the other two legs cannot easily provide. They can be recalled, repositioned, placed on different levels of alert, and used as a visible signal during a crisis. That combination is the real purpose of the nuclear triad. It is not designed to make nuclear war easier to fight, but to make the idea of starting one increasingly irrational. In a world where Russia remains a nuclear superpower and China is rapidly expanding its strategic capabilities, America's nuclear triad is ultimately about one thing: making sure that deterrence survives even when everything else fails. The first leg of America's nuclear triad is the land-based ICBM force. These missiles are designed to remain on alert and provide a rapid response if national leaders order their use. Their fixed locations may seem like a weakness, but their wide distribution and hardened infrastructure create a difficult targeting problem for any adversary. ICBMs also serve another strategic purpose. They complicate an enemy's calculations. To eliminate the entire land-based force, an adversary would need to successfully attack multiple hardened sites across a large geographic area. That means a first strike would have to be extraordinarily extensive, making the decision to launch one even more dangerous. But land-based missiles are not the most survivable part of the triad. That distinction belongs to ballistic missile submarines, which operate beneath the world's oceans. Their greatest advantage is simple: an enemy cannot easily destroy what it cannot reliably locate. America's Columbia-class submarines are being developed to replace the aging Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines. These vessels are designed for extremely long patrols while carrying submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Their mission is not to win a conventional battle at sea, but to ensure that a nuclear response remains possible even after a devastating attack. The ocean gives these submarines an enormous operating environment. Unlike a missile silo, a submarine can change its position continuously while remaining hidden beneath the surface. For an adversary, tracking one submarine is difficult enough. Tracking an entire fleet continuously across the world's oceans is an entirely different challenge. Then there is the air leg of the Triad, strategic bombers. Aircraft such as the B-52 and the emerging B-21 Raider provide a capability that missiles and submarines cannot easily replicate. Bombers can be deployed visibly, repositioned, recalled, or placed on different levels of readiness, giving political leaders an additional tool for signaling during a crisis. That flexibility matters because nuclear deterrence is not only about destruction, it is also about communication. Moving bombers, increasing patrols, or changing alert levels can send a message to an adversary without immediately crossing the threshold of launching a nuclear weapon. Each leg of the Triad therefore solves a different problem. ICBMs provide speed and a dispersed land-based force. Submarines provide concealment and survivability, while bombers provide flexibility and signaling. Together, they create overlapping layers that make it much harder for an adversary to believe that one successful attack could eliminate America's nuclear capability. Of course, maintaining 3 separate nuclear delivery systems is enormously expensive. It requires modern missiles, submarines, aircraft, command and control networks, specialized personnel, and decades of infrastructure. Critics question whether all 3 legs are necessary, while U.S. defense planners argue that redundancy is precisely what makes deterrence credible. The fundamental idea is therefore not that every weapon must be used. It is that an adversary must never be certain that it can eliminate all 3 legs at once. 3 different systems create one strategic message. A first strike cannot guarantee a free pass from retaliation. For decades, America's nuclear strategy was largely shaped by one dominant relationship: the competition with Russia. Today, however, the strategic environment is becoming more complicated. China is rapidly expanding and modernizing its nuclear forces, creating a more complex 3-way nuclear balance. China's nuclear arsenal is still smaller than those of the United States and Russia, but its trajectory matters. Beijing is developing new missile systems, expanding its warhead stockpile, and strengthening its ability to deliver nuclear weapons from land, sea, and air. This means the United States increasingly has to consider 2 major nuclear competitors instead of one. Russia presents a different challenge. Moscow already possesses a massive and sophisticated nuclear arsenal, including ICBMs, ballistic missile submarines, and strategic bombers. Its nuclear doctrine and repeated nuclear signaling during periods of geopolitical tension also make Russia central to American strategic planning. This creates a difficult problem for Washington. The United States must maintain a deterrent capable of surviving a potential attack from one major nuclear power while still being credible against another. The nuclear triad provides redundancy precisely because no single system can guarantee security against every possible scenario. The underwater leg becomes especially important in this environment. A submarine that remains undetected can provide a form of strategic insurance, even if an adversary possesses advanced satellites, sensors, cyber capabilities, and anti-submarine warfare technology. As technology improves, the competition between hiding submarines and finding them will become increasingly important. The air leg also has a geopolitical role beyond carrying nuclear weapons. Strategic bombers can be moved between bases, deployed alongside allies, and used to demonstrate American military presence without immediately launching an attack. This gives Washington an additional way to communicate resolve during a crisis. The land-based ICBM force creates another strategic calculation for America's rivals. Because the missiles are dispersed across multiple hardened facilities, an adversary cannot assume that a limited attack would eliminate the entire force. In theory, attempting to destroy it could require a massive first strike, which itself could trigger devastating retaliation. But the nuclear balance is no longer only about weapons. It is increasingly about technology, intelligence, early warning systems, cyber capabilities, space assets, and command and control networks. A nuclear deterrent is only credible if political leaders can communicate with their forces and maintain reliable information during an extreme crisis. This is why America's nuclear modernization is about more than replacing old missiles, submarines, or aircraft. Washington is trying to preserve a system that can remain survivable and credible in a world where Russia remains heavily armed and China is becoming a much stronger nuclear power. The objective is not to make nuclear war more winnable, but to make the consequences of starting one impossible to ignore. Ultimately, America's nuclear triad is an insurance policy against the worst possible scenario. Land-based missiles provide speed, submarines provide survivability, and bombers provide flexibility and strategic signaling. The United States does not maintain 3 nuclear forces because it expects to use them. It maintains 3 because its adversaries must never believe they can destroy all 3.